Hey guys, welcome back for more tutorials. My name is Magnet, and today we're finally getting a look at stuff in TvT, which I'm relying on WCS replays to do these, and as we all know, there hasn't been a lot of TvT in WCS, so I finally got some stuff put together for that, and we're going to be looking about, or rather talking about, using harassment, and more importantly, using harassment to kill your opponent in TvT, rather than just to try to get an advantage. So we'll see some cool stuff in here, such as good timings, and we'll talk a little bit about getting good trades with your harassment. But the most important part is really just keeping your opponent dancing, in the sense that they're kind of running back and forth and not really accomplishing very much because your harassment is constantly staying away from their army. So we'll see some stuff like that, and we'll kind of talk about those concepts. But we'll go ahead and jump into the game here. And today we're going to be taking a look at MVP versus MMA. More specifically, we're going to be looking at MMA, so he's the red Terran up here. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and this is going to be pretty common openers. There's a lot of information about openers in other videos that we've talked about in the Terran playlist, so there's a link down in the description if you want to see more of that stuff. But MMA is going to be running the harassment opener, and this particular one is going to be just a typical build that you can do in this matchup that gives you a lot of different options. And playing the best option is obviously going to give you the biggest advantage. So he's opening gas first, which we talked about a little bit in the openers video, but basically the gas first is going to get you the fastest factory possible. And that's the whole idea, because a lot of harassment in the early game especially revolves around Hellions and dropships. So obviously the faster you can get your Hellions and dropships up, then the quicker you're going to be able to get that out. So he's going gas first, going to start a barracks here on 13 supply, and then continue his SCV production as soon as he gets that. Gets the money for it anyway. So fast forwarding here, and I should note that a lot of the harassment in this matchup can be done by Banshees, but since that's such a common opener, we're going to talk about that in another video. There's going to be a separate video for using Banshees in TvT, considering it's such a common thing to see in this matchup, whereas this is not quite as common. So seeing the factory come up now, and you'll notice that the factory can start as soon as the barracks is done. So that's the point of going gas first, that otherwise you'd have to wait for a little while until after the barracks was done to start your factory. So as soon as the factory is done, he's going to start a Hellion, and he's going to start a starport as soon as that's done. You do need to make sure you defend yourself against Reaper plays. That's why this early Hellion is on the way. So this is nice and flexible. If they go for a lot of Reapers or something like that, maybe 2 Rex Reaper to open the game, the Hellion being out here is really strong against those Reaper plays, and that's why it's good to open up with gas first like this. So the constant Marine production, the Hellions coming off of the factory here, are gonna get you into a nice stable position to open up the game. So you definitely don't want to take too much damage from these Reapers if you can. Always keep your Marines paired up like this, or at least in a group, so that the Reaper can't pick them off one at a time. So getting stabilized is obviously the first point in TvT here. But once the Hellions start coming out, this is when the options start to open up for you. The play here is going to be you're going to open up with enough Hellions to fill a dropship and enough Marines to fill a dropship, and it's kind of up to you how you're going to utilize that. So we can see the dropship on the way now. He's kind of hiding his Hellions a little bit in hopes of catching the Reaper so that he doesn't see what's going on. So third Hellion's on the way, the dropship's now done, so he goes ahead and loads up the Marines and he starts walking the Hellions across the map. So you can see 3 Hellions are out right now, and if you follow this build exactly, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be able to do exactly what they're doing so far. Just by watching the supplies and making sure you're always hitting your SCV timings, not getting supply blocks, starting your buildings on time, starting your units on time, etc. You can do this exact thing. And if you rally everything together, maybe load your Marines into medevac like we're seeing here, it gives you a lot of options. So let's kind of talk over the options here before we see what MMA decides to do. What you could do is you could drop your Marines back here, and the whole point of that would just be to not lose your Marines, which would force him to bring all of his stuff back and try to defend from that. So he'll have to bring his Marines, his Hellions back. Maybe he has like a Banshee or something out. Maybe he has a Raven, which is one of the worst openers against this type of thing, but Raven openers are pretty common. So let's say you drop your Marines back here, he reacts with this whole army, then you can run your Hellions up here and maybe kill some SCVs. Or you could do it the other way. You could start out by trying to poke up here with the Hellions, attract his army up here, and then drop your Marines back there later while he doesn't have his army here. The whole point of these type of harassments is to try and hit him in a point where his army is not, and you can use a lot of tools to kind of pull him around the map. And if you control properly, then you're going to put him in a position where he has to defend two fronts, and he might not know which front is going to be attacked harder. And that always gives you a big advantage if you're being the aggressor here. So there's even other options, like he could drop his Hellions in here with his medevac and force the army to recover, maybe pull the SCVs away, and then run his Marines into the natural. Or there's always the option of he could bring his medevac over here, drop his Marines off, and then run the Marines in the back and force the SCVs to run away, and then drop the Hellions on top of the SCVs while they're trying to run away. Like, there's a lot of different things you can do with this. So I don't want to understate the flexibility of the harassment in this opener. There's so many options, and you should really play with it until you're comfortable. So MVP now knows there's Hellions out on the map. He might even know that this opener is coming. But because MVP decided to open Reaper, this is one of the weaker defenses against something like this. And note that breaking down the bunker here is going to give him a lot of flexibility. So if they're starting a bunker, if you can get your Hellions out fast enough, killing the bunker here and preventing the SCV from constructing it is going to give you a lot of different options. And the only option I haven't discussed so far is the one that MMA is going to take, and that is that if they don't have enough units out right now, you can just group all your forces together. You're going to have the healing power of the medevac on your Marines, and you might be able to just straight up kill them in a regular fight. So there's a lot of different options here. The Hellions are really pulling stuff away, and now the Marines start to get dropped on top of this army, and MVP has to be like, oh man, this is so bad. I haven't killed any of the Hellions, and now there's a whole medevac full of Marines coming. This is getting really terrible for me. So being super aggressive, he does cancel the bunker here, so it can't be continue to be constructed. And again, this is another harassment point where you could maybe split up your Marines back here or something, and then bring the Hellions around on the other side. There's a lot of different options that you could do with this opener, but there also is the option of just straight up killing them, assuming they haven't prepared properly. So he has to start pulling SCVs against this, and it's really up to you to control this battle properly, but even still, your units are still better by this point, and you can still always lift up in your medevac and get out of there if you need to. So a lot of different things going on here, but trying to line up everything with the Hellions is what MMA is trying to do. Of course, the medevac does heal these Marines for quite a long time, and you can see everything just starting to evaporate for MVP because MMA was getting the right targeting on his Hellions there. So killing even more SCVs, it's all going really well, and at any time, like I said, he could just load back up into the medevac here, but the damage has really been done. Let's take a look at how many workers were killed. 11 workers were killed. It's 25 SCVs to 14 for MVP, so MMA is in really great shape. And something we neglected to comment on is the Banshee follow-up behind this. So once the medevac left the base, he just dropped a tech lab on here and started Banshee and Cloak, so that if MVP somehow managed to hold this off, he probably wouldn't actually have enough money to start turrets in his base as well. So multi-stage harassment is really, really strong. We talked about all the options you could run with this. And if they don't have detections, or if they're using mules to recover from the economic deficit, you can see just drop one here in the main, then they're probably just dead if they can't prepare for this properly. So behind this, of course, you always want your harassments to result in an economic advantage. So starting the command center while the Banshee's in production, you can see it's all really lining up to be a really nice opener here. And then you can choose where you want to go. You can go for mech or bio from this point, or marine tank, or whatever else you feel most comfortable with. And even if this Banshee doesn't end the game, if they still manage to hold it off somehow, there's still a lot of things you can do with Cloak to make him waste energy. And you can see he can even hold off counter harassments with this Banshee. But there's so many different options here, and you usually do want to get 2 Banshees if you do go for something like Cloak. So this is going to put MVP so far out of position. The MMA can just continue to harass here, and he can hold off basically whatever he wants with the Cloak and with the Banshee against just Hellions. And of course he does have the units back at home to be okay against that as well. This seems fairly meager, but he's about to have a tank done as well. Excuse me. He's about to have a tank done as well, and the tank is going to be your ultimate way to hold off any big counters against something like that. So coming back in here, MVP still will do quite a bit of damage, but the tank being out, it's going to hold this just fine. The Marines and the medevacs is going to be fine. He can bring back another Banshee if he wants to. So once the tank is out, this really shouldn't be an issue. But like I said, he probably still will lose some SCVs. But the whole point here wasn't about trying to hold the counter. If you can get this tank up, then you can hold this just fine. He's going to have to tank a little bit with these SCVs. But the whole point was having the second stage of harassments with these Banshees, because let's look at MVP's base. He just barely got an engineering bay done. He doesn't even really have enough for scans or even enough units back at home to deal with these. So basically, if MMA holds this, then he wins. So tank coming up here, trying desperately to get some shots on these with the Hellions. You can see from MVP, really not doing a whole lot. You can even repair your tanks. Marines are out now. You can continue your Marine production to help hold this off. But back on the other side, the Banshee's really getting out of control because he can't finish up the turrets due to the Banshees constantly hitting them. And from this point, MVP just has no answers. He took way too much damage and didn't have enough money to start up the engineering bay and the turrets in order to get this taken care of. So this is one opener that's really flexible and really strong. You can see the GG there from MVP. One opener that's very flexible and very strong, a lot of different options to control your army, has a good amount of transitions with the Banshee, with the command center and the tanks and whatnot. Really, really nice opener. So we're going to take a look at another game that goes a little bit longer. This is Polt versus Neeb. Really two of my favorite Terrans, but Polt especially is known for his harassment and his ability to make the army dance around from the opponent and not really accomplish anything while he's killing bases or killing tech or killing workers, whatever. So we're mostly going to focus on Polt here, and he's spawning here on the right side of Habitation Station, which might seem like an ancient map by now, but it was a thing back in the days of these replays. So, the opener isn't as important here from Polt. This is more of a defensive opener, but we're going to talk more about mid and late game harass in this game, considering you can see it does last a lot longer. It's 27 minutes. So, Polt just getting a normal barracks up here, gas afterward. You can see on about 13 or 14 supplies, just whenever you can afford it without missing SCVs. And this is really going to be a very normal opener here from Polt. You can see a Marine on the way, nothing too crazy. Going to try and defend against Reapers. He did SCV scout to make sure nothing crazy was coming down, like 2 barracks or Reapers or something, or maybe a proxy. So he's just stacking his Marines up here, going to try and get an expansion up as soon as he can, placing a depot over here just to make sure he can check against drops. And on the defensive, he is putting up a tech lab here on his factory, which could be 4 Banshees, but he's going to go ahead and open up with a mine. And then on the starport, you can decide what you want to do with that. A lot of times it will just be a Viking, yep, and there it is right there, to defend against Banshee. So this is a much more defensive opener that I really like, just these Marines, a mine, and a Viking to defend against Banshee plays. And then immediately afterward, you can go with a Raven to detect Cloak Banshees. So this is just a really flexible build. If he was going up against the previous one we saw against MMA, he would probably do a lot better considering he would have this mine. Maybe he could get a good mine hit on the Marines or on the Hellions or something. So this is a much better defensive opener. So Viking coming up now. Of course the Viking could also push away a medevac if they decide to open up this way. And you can see from Neeb, this is actually a really similar opener. So it's funny that we were talking about that one from MMA, but Neeb is doing basically the same thing. He might play his options a little bit differently, so if you're having trouble against that particular opener, maybe this is something good to watch here from Polt. You'll notice that there's no command center on the low ground. Polt decided just to start it on the high ground back here. He does have the Viking out. He's got his mine burrowed, or at least it's burrowing right now on the ramp, so if Neeb tries to run up there, then he's going to get wrecked. The Viking can push away the medevac here. So this is a really good flexible opener. But we're also going to see a couple of different things, and that is how Neeb transitions behind this same harassment opener we saw in the last game. So you can see the command center coming down now. He's producing a Viking rather than getting into Ravens, and this will basically stabilize into a normal game. So the mine gets killed unfortunately, but as long as you can kill this medevac, that'll be good. You need to not take too much damage here, and really the longer this attack is here trying to butt up against your wall, the less it's going to do. So you can just kind of try to whittle this down the best as possible with your units. Just have a Raven on the way. You can drop an auto turret to try and defend against this. The medevac being pushed back is a big deal, so you can kind of finagle your Viking around to try and kill that. There's a lot of different things going on here, but just defending against this type of opener is really good. You can see that this opener doesn't necessarily need to do a lot in order to pay for itself. So everything's getting really low. Now that the Raven is out, he can drop an auto turret. And Neeb knows this is basically over, considering he has nothing really to transition with. There's only 5 Marines and a Hellion. 1 tank could easily push that back here if that's what he was opting to do, but we know that he's not. So either way, this is going to stabilize into a normal game. And you can see the transition's a little different here from Neeb. He's just going super fast, 3rd command center, dropping a tech lab to get the tank out, to eventually push off any sort of counterattacks and stuff from Polt. Polt does have the Raven out, so everything is looking really normal so far. And then we'll start getting into more of the harassment stages here from Polt. So we're going to kind of fast forward just a little bit. And I apologize, that actually was a Banshee transition rather than... Oh no, the tank was on the other side, my bad. So yeah, this is going to be a Banshee follow-up here. So this is where the harassment can begin. We'll talk again more about Banshees in detail in another game, but this one's just to try and give you guys ideas about harassment. So not a whole lot going on right now, just the Banshee's starting to come out here. Cloak is finishing up, and you can see because he got scanned, this is a little weird. You might be like, why did he switch that off even though Cloak wasn't done? That's just to kind of fool Neeb, because Neeb saw this was spinning, he saw this was working, and then he might be expecting a Banshee, so Pult's just being like, oh, never mind, I'm just going to switch. So he switches into Stim, he's going to start getting his medevacs up here, and the progress is going to be into constant medevac harassment, as well as some other types. So Neeb's trying to figure out what's going on here. He just pushes up, doesn't really see a whole lot. The tank is out here for Pult, so you can push that away, no problem. You can see Neeb trying to get a little bit of harassment done here. So if you can always, I mean, there's really no penalty to harassing like this if you keep everything alive. So, I mean, he may have killed a couple of SCVs here, he might not have. As long as this isn't harming what he's doing back at home, then little plays like this are always fine. But like I need to mention, the whole importance of harassing like this is just keeping your units alive while doing stuff. So Drop is coming back in here. He's just going to try and see what he can get done. Now that he's getting hit by a tank, he can just pick right back up. He's only lost 1 Marine. Could have even lost 0. Now he's trying to be cute and dropping the Marines on top of the SCVs so that the tank will kill their own SCVs. So pretty cool stuff here coming out of Neeb. A little bit different harassment options. Just going to go ahead and fly home. So Pult's still getting geared up here, getting his medevacs out. Thus far, he's really been the defender from everything, so if you're having trouble with harassment in TvT, you can kind of see a couple of different options to hold that off. Tanks are obviously really good, but the Raven's also really good for putting down point defense drones. Vikings are good for pushing away medevacs, stuff like that. So Pult's going to start pressing up here, and Neeb definitely sees what's going on. He should have a tank out at least. Yeah, he has 2 tanks, so he can defend against any sort of just straight-up run-ins. So if you're Pult, you can't just be like, "Roar, I'm going to go get him," because you're going to run right into siege tanks and you're going to die. So the only way you're going to really be able to get around that is to start harassing and try to pick them apart in different ways. Alternatively, you could just try and, get ahead in the tank counter, just get a bigger army or something, but if you can do stuff like this, then it's going to be a lot stronger. So Pult starts to push in here with his Marines. If you can get this command center, then awesome. If not, maybe try to pick off some SCVs. But most importantly, you just don't want to lose units here. So he's picking off what he can. As soon as the army starts to report, he just runs away. Here's another use for this Raven, though. In the meantime, we can see, look at where Neeb's army is. It's way across the map. And the Raven is totally undefended back here. You can see a turret is coming up, funnily enough. But he got there in time to hold off this Raven, or rather to not take any damage from these missile turrets. So while this is going on, he can drop down auto turrets and be really annoying. All this costs him is energy if he doesn't lose the Raven. So he drops a couple, almost loses the Raven. You really don't want to throw that away. But if Neeb starts to recover to this and pulls everything back, then Pult can send his other army back over here and maybe kill this command center. So there's a lot of different options here from Pult. So Pult pushes back up here. He's taking hits from those tanks. He can try to fight these Marines since there's no medevacs here, but if he doesn't feel confident, he can always just pick back up in his medevacs and get out of there. But the longer he just lets these turrets sit, the more kills they're going to get. So a lot of stuff going on here, and you can even see the worker count killed is starting to climb up here for Pult as well. So, I mean, that didn't really cost him anything other than Raven energy. He did lose some Marines back here. Almost killed the command center, but getting a lot of SCVs puts him into a good position now. So really the worker count is still in Neeb's favor, but Pult's going to continue to do this, and he's going to continue to get ahead because of it. So pushing forward is Pult right now. We also have to take into account that Pult did lose some workers to Neeb's drops earlier, so that's why this isn't such a great game in favor of Pult right now. But pushing forward is Pult, and you can start to do a little bit of shenanigans with these tanks here. You can see him loading into these medevacs. And big drops like this are going to be really hard to clean out in TvT as well, considering they might be using the exact same units as you. So again, he's looking for an opening here. The Raven's still building up energy, so he could come back and maybe drop another auto turret. I always call them point defense drones, I don't know why, but he can drop another auto turret back here, maybe kill a couple of workers, be annoying, whatever. But this is still just multi-pronged harass, because the big drop is going to be right here. And secondarily, look at him show these units to the sensor tower. Neeb's vision, he can see this coming across, so he has to be like, what is that? I need to be ready to defend against this, when the real threat is actually right here, and he has no idea. So, dropping off are all the tanks. He does just siege inside the main, and the Marines are trying to keep this army down here for as long as possible, so he can get as much damage done in the main as he can while the army's not there. And now Neeb finally realizes, oh man, I'm taking a lot of damage back here. I need to really be careful. And Bolt's getting a lot of free stuff. You can even see, I'm pretty sure we were talking about, yeah, he does just go ahead and drop off a couple of auto turrets. So he's still losing a lot of SCVs during all this and having a hard time cleaning this up. So I mean, this is just all about multi-pronging them, and it's all about hitting them where their army can't get to. So right now let's take out the workers killed. 23-5, and overall Polt is now not quite ahead once again, but he is getting a lot better trades as the game goes on. He could actually be a lot further ahead if he were being more economically aggressive. I think he's actually just missing a lot of workers behind this, which is unfortunate. You can even see his command centers are idle right now, so it's not like he's not doing a good job with this, but you need to definitely keep up on your SCVs and stuff behind it. So, medevacs once again. There's 3 medevacs loaded up full of Marines. There's also a second squad over here, 3 medevacs with some Marines. So, he's going for another multi-pronged harass, and this Raven can still drop an auto turret. You can see it just got enough energy to re-drop one here. And this is just so incredibly annoying as a Terran player to try to deal with all this. And again, if you're Polt, the biggest thing here is just keeping your stuff alive for as long as possible. So, he's going to re-drop here, and he gets pushed away by the Vikings. But he knows that he might have an opening down here at the bottom, so he's going to continue to be aggressive down here. And if he ever gets an opening, like you can see here, he just flies right in, drops some Marines off. All of a sudden, Neeb has to make a decision. Neeb decides to commit down to the bottom with his army, leaving this army basically unchecked. There's not enough here to push away these Marines, at least right away. And once again, there's another auto turret. Look how many, we should see how many kills this Raven actually has if I can click on it. It has 28 kills, so that's a pretty big deal for your Raven to get that many SCV kills. So Neeb's having a hell of a time dealing with this. And again, if you're Polt, you really don't want to lose anything, so you can try and lift up. If you can kill tanks and at least get decent trades, he couldn't lift up here because the Vikings would kill his medevacs, so I mean the best thing is to keep stuff alive, but you ultimately do want to get good trades with everything. So you can see, look at all these SCV kills he's getting now. Just craziness going on here from Polt. 36 worker kills, and now he has a 3rd command center up, and at least he should be producing SCVs better, which again he's not. That's so silly that he's doing all this and not producing SCVs, which he could be way ahead if he was, but the fact that he's missing all those is really hurting him. So that's kind of something I really need to underline, is that the only way this is worth it is if you make SCVs back at home. You can even see, look at all of Polt's command centers. They're still idle when there's really no reason for them to be idle at this point. So moving into the next stage of the game, I mean this could keep going on forever and ever, but we're going to watch the result of this as Polt does continue to get bigger and bigger advantages. By the way, Neeb kind of counterattacking a little bit, doing a drop of his own while Polt's army is out here on the map. This is also a good opportunity to get a lot of damage done if you know your opponent's out on the map and you can split off one medevac and still be okay. Especially in these Marine tank situations, if they can't break your tanks and they can't get good position, then doing drops like this is fine because it forces them to pull units back to deal with it. So both these guys just trying to set up for a good position here. And this may just actually turn into a base trade. So I'm trying to remember this replay, and I think this is about as far as it really goes as far as harassment is concerned. So let's just go ahead and stop it here, because this isn't really about harassment. This is a totally different phase of the game. Just go ahead and call that good. I hope that at least gave you guys some good ideas for harassment in TvT, and it might explain what you're maybe dying to on the ladder or something, but getting advantages like this in TvT are going to be a really good way to obviously play out the rest of the game if you're both on mirror unit compositions, or if you can't really figure out a way to kill a Terran. The ultimate way to kill most people with Terran, especially with medevacs, is just to drop over and over and keep annoying them and kill SCVs and whatever until they're dead. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll be back with more videos all the time as usual, so look out for those in the future, and I'll see you later.